Hello.
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 I see some people here. Even though we have had some discussions on time zones or whatever. So was I correct that the US is still in DST or?
Yeah, it is. I was like really confused because I was like, I feel like this is an hour ahead for us, but I was like, yeah, whatever, So, but yeah, I'm glad that someone
So
that you
strange that we don't switch at the same time in all the world.
Yeah, definitely.
We shouldn't stay switching at all. We should just keep the one time, I guess.
Yep, makes sense.
For us.
I've just spent the last week writing code to try and deal with that problem. So
I bet you're not the first one, are you? Yeah.
I think it's always interesting. I remember like running Linux, it seems like that the most updated package is always the time zone info package because that keeps changing all the time.
Yeah, it does. So let's see. I think I got some comments from Vibhav here. Oh, Vibhav has tried to join, but he somehow has the wrong link. I will send a link to him. So let's see if he comes. I know that Andreas said he won't come today. So let's see. What's the passcode? Is this? Oh, there is no passcode, is there?
For what?
For this meeting?
No, there shouldn't be.
I mean, they've pasted the complete link. The same.
Yeah, you should just join and then just need to wait for the host, which is you. So yeah, no passcode.
I don't think he even needs to wait for me. I don't. It's not in the lobby.
Oh yeah, you're right.
No, Eric went. Yeah, he's back. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. There you are. Hi, Vibhav. You got in. Was there a strong fence to jump over, or? No. Can you hear us, Vibhav?
Yeah, sorry, I just have like mic issues. I can hear you guys.
Yeah, there you are. Good. Thanks. Welcome.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we shouldn't wait for anyone else now. I could bring up the agenda so we all know what we're talking about here. Let's see. There we go. And I guess it's quite small for you, so I'll increase the font. Yeah, please add yourselves to the minutes as well. I'm in office today and I don't have the external keyboard with me, so I'm using my laptop keyboard for once. It's quite confusing when you're used to be at home, but still, all of a sudden you're in office. Anyway, we are here. It's now 4 p.m. UTC. So, wait, do you see my screen now? Ah, sorry, no, not yet, right?
Yep.
I think you should see it.
Yes, you can see it now.
But do you see the right screen? Do you see
We'll see it. Yeah, you see the HackMD
browser.
notes right now.
yeah, good.
Yeah.
It's strange, but okay, yep, good. So, yeah, we're here. The thought agenda for today is that we should have some discussions on GitHub Actions. GitHub has spent some time thinking about that, and probably doing some work with it. Let's see what that is soon. And then the SDK status updates. See, Eric, you have added already for the Python SDK. And then we should look into the plans for the coming CDEvents release 0.2, which we haven't. Well, there is actually a proposed date for it, so we'll see that when we come there as well. Good. Anything you would like to add to the agenda or reprioritize due to reasons? Or can we get going as is? Let's get going then. So Vibhav, do you want to talk about the GitHub Actions?
Yes, so I don't have a demo, but I don't have a demo mostly because over the last few days, all the conversations we've had on the channel regarding, the implementation for an adapter for GitHub, it didn't make sense for me to like just go ahead and demo it because it makes more sense to make a more like a good solution instead of just POCing it. So what I want to focus on is mostly how to implement this adapter on this call. What I do want to start with is I want to show the mappings from the CD.
Do you want to share, or I can stop sharing there?
I can share.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah, I'll share 1 second. Yeah, so this is how I was initially thinking of like the action to look like. We basically say uses CDEvents and send event CD event. Like this would be one action, and we give the sync URL with the like we just give the sync URL. We give the URL for the sync. Like this is the very basic example I was thinking of. And I was thinking of implementing this in Bash initially and just giving a payload like using curl. But we'll go on to the actual implementation, what would be the implementation later. I wanted to discuss and see what you guys think about the mapping that I've done here for the GitHub PR event type to the CD event. So here, whatever events we already support for changes in CD event, I've mapped it to the existing PR events for GitHub. Now, in CD events, we have source code version control events, so in that we have a few, 1 second. Yeah, so in that we have, let me just go back here. So this is what the change looks like. It has an ID, a source, and a repo on which a change has been made. And the change events themselves are created, reviewed, merged, abandoned, updated, right? 5 of these. Now, whatever I thought made sense for mapping, I've done it over here. So for when a PR is opened on GitHub, I expect a workflow to run and run this job, and then once the PR is open, it will basically say that the change created event should be sent ideally to the sync. Then same upon like when a PR is edited, as in like the commit is changed, we send an updated event. If the PR is closed, send an abandoned event. If the PR is reopened, I would think like send a created event again, because there is no reopening as such. Then for synchronize, again, I was thinking of updated, and there is contention upon like how the review, like what event should be sent on reviewed for a change. So that's something I want to discuss further, and what is something, if we should add a field, or if there are new events we need to add for that. But these are the events I was thinking of implementing initially. So if
So-
if there are any questions till you,
Yeah, just a few comments there. I guess what changed updated, for example, I
Mhm.
guess that could be different kinds of updates. Doesn't need to just be the edited action, maybe. I'm just speculating now, I guess. So it says what that event contains. There is actually doesn't contain any additional properties right now in the spec. But I guess it could state just that, well, just inform that now this change has been updated, and the consumer of the event could, of course, go to GitHub to see what has updated, or ask
Mhm.
GitHub what is the current status of this change. It was apparently updated, and what is the current status? But exactly what to include there, if we should also provide some data in that updated event that would then reflect that now there is a new review requested, or a review put, or whatever. But I think anyway, the updated event could at least be used initially for any kind of update.
okay.
Uh,
So you're suggesting that we could actually add information regarding reviews in the update, probably.
I mean, we have the custom data field in all events.
Yeah.
So that field could, at least now when you are evaluating and POCing this, you
Mhm.
could use the custom data field to specify what has been updated in this change,
Okay.
if you like. And then, of course, once you've realized that, well, we certainly need a specific event type for this, and update it doesn't really fit, then we could, of course, consider that. But to not get you halted, I think you can start using the change updated event as it is, and use the custom
Okay.
data in there.
Okay, I'm gonna take this as a note.
And just real quick with GitHub, right? There's like two concepts. Like there's the PR, and then there's like the files changed, right? So when we say edited, we just care about the files changed, and not necessarily, like, for instance, if someone changes the PR title, are we also capturing that in edited? Or like what I guess what is the scope of edited?
Yeah, I think that's a good comment.
Yeah, I was actually going to guess that edited means that you opened the PR in GitHub and you sort of like changed the title or changed the description, or did something else like that. Whereas not the only purpose of the change updated, but I think the main purpose somehow is to say that the code has changed, which would typically be a signal to maybe some build system or some verification system that, okay, now the code has changed. So now we should re-trigger a build or something like that. But of course, as you say, Emil, updated could mean any form of update, and some other updates might be interesting to announce as well. But if you look at the spec, then the example that is given is that the code has changed. And I think looking at this list, this edited thing would not fire when the code has changed. That would be my guess, at least. Because I think, or I would guess that GitHub would probably send events related to the branch that is backing the review rather than the review itself. I'm not sure, but that would be my guess.
Does anyone know that? Do you know, Viva, what event or what GitHub action is actually used for example, adding a new commit to an existing pull request or updating a commit? Is it the edit action, or?
So I can speculate and say it might be edited. I'm not sure. We can check over here though. So it's edited. Okay.
So what other actions are there, or is there more information about the edited action, or maybe not here?
It seems okay. So the action performed on the pull request would be like, seems like it's created, edited, or deleted. So I guess any change made to the PRs. But let me see.
So, but yeah, but as we said, is a new commit actually a change to the PR, or is it something else?
Yeah. So there is a webhook payload object, and one of the fields is changes. The changes is basically the changes to the, if the action was edited, the changes to the rule. I don't know what rule means here.
Mm,
Yeah, it's still pretty ambiguous, right?
Yeah.
I guess we might need to POC this to understand what actually happens. I have never used GitHub Actions in this way, or trying to create an adapter myself for it, so I can't really say.
So these are the changes, authorized actors.
But where is the actual commit stated? Under what structure is that put here? You know, can you see that? This is some commit here somewhere here.
So they haven't given a reference comment for this example that they have, like there is no reference comment.
But it's quite long, right? It's
Yeah.
there. The repository, and then what comes after the repository then?
I'm just seeing, maybe it might be over here. Repository, yeah. URL. Yeah, this is the commits URL. I think
Okay,
this
so that's
might
how
be
you
an
get the actual changes then, is through the commits URL. Okay, that makes sense. But it still doesn't answer what edited, if edited also includes things like, you know, PR title, you know, comments to the PR, and things of that nature, right?
Mm.
You're right. So this is my first repo on GitHub. This comes under the repository description.
Yeah, I think we might need to understand a bit better what actually happens here, and we also need to understand what changes are relevant to catch through CDEvents, as Eric was into as well. I mean, if a new commit has come in, of course we certainly would like to run some tests on it probably, and then it makes sense to send the event to say that this has changed, and it might be interesting to run some new tests or builds on it or whatever. But if just the title is changed, it might not be as relevant to send a CD event for it.
Do comments though, right? Like on the PR itself, not the like the code, but you know, like on GitHub, you can just have like comments just like on the parent like level. That would be important to include, right? Even though it's like outside of the code per se.
Yeah,
Would
there
that
are some
count
interesting
as
use
reviewable?
cases. Sorry, go ahead, Biab.
Sorry, I'm guessing, would that count as a review then? There might be like another events itself for that. Like, okay, let's see. Okay, they have pull request review, comment,
Perfect.
and thread over here. I can go here and check if you want to.
So those are separate actions, are they?
Yeah,
No?
yeah. That's what they
But
look
it says
like.
that the action is still edited. So there is an action in the.
So this must be specifically to the comment that is created. So
You can actually edit. So when you edit the comment, then you get this with edited. Okay.
I was going to say there are some interesting use cases here related to what Ben said. Like if you announce a comment, because I know in Zool, which we use, like one way of retriggering is to just write retrigger in a comment, and that gets sent out on the event bus, and Zool picks that up and retriggers the job. So yes, I think announcing comments can be interesting as well.
It shuts
yeah,
off
you're right.
behavior,
Yeah.
right?
So will that be like a new subject under, like a sub-subject under change?
That's a good question.
It could potentially
mean,
be another event. Yeah.
Actually, we do have an event that is called change reviewed.
Yes.
If we want to use an existing event, then that would be the one, I think, because that one doesn't say that you actually have to have given a verdict. It just says that you have, you've done something that related to reviewing of this.
Mm.
So I
Right.
think this would be the one to use if we don't want to introduce a new one. Actually, it says that a review event has to include if the change is approved. So then we would need a separate event or to change the definition.
We might be able to change this as well.
So while we are on this, I have more like questions around the reviewed aspect. So this, what this states is basically change has been reviewed, and it's like the review has been done, but at no point is there like a event which says there is a change. Sorry, the change needs a review, like a review is requested or a review is deleted. So this one is basically saying a review has been created on the change, but there is nothing saying that a review needs to be done. So
yeah,
how I'm thinking about that is like there's a communication gap. Like no one is just going to come and tell me to like review my PR. Sorry, I'm not just going to go and like review someone's PR. Like I need to know what to review. So I feel like there's a need for change review created. Sorry, change review requested as like another event maybe.
But I think that this I mean, this relates to discussion that we've had, which is about prescriptive versus descriptive events. That it's not, we've tried thus far to avoid prescriptive events. So it's not the purpose of CDEvents to announce that something needs to be done.
No, but I think this is more saying that the pull request now has the state of having requested a review for it. I mean, it's something that has happened. Someone has requested a review on this pull request, and we just want to announce that that has happened. So, I mean, it's not that we more or less replace the GitHub request for review thing with the CDEvents, but rather signal that the GitHub system has requested someone to review this pull request.
Okay, so it wouldn't be a review request. It would be an announcement that the review has entered the requested state somehow.
Something like that, I would say.
Yeah, so it will be a description of the review being like asked for by the system.
Yeah.
So the way this works, the way this works in Zool is that you don't request a review. Zool picks up the change created and change update and those other events, and then just automatically does its tasks. So there's no state where you ask Zool to review. It just picks up on the other signals and does the review automatically.
That's a good point. Like if there is a PR, there should be automatically people who are going to review it. So no one needs to, like, I don't think there needs to be anyone who needs to be asked probably.
I mean, that can still exist, but GitHub already has a solution for that. So if I go and add an assignee to a review, then that person will get an email. That person will not pick that up by watching CDEvents. So CDEvents would be more like...
as well. I mean, do you see a use case where people would like to have CDEvents for such use cases? For example, that there might be some use GitHub, some use Bitbucket or whatever, and they would like to have one common way of seeing that they have been requested to review changes from whatever system. Is that your use case that you're looking for, or is there really a need for this?
So it would make sense to see if GitLab or maybe another CI/CD event like has this similar event, like a review requested. If it does, then I would think like maybe it is kind of common enough to add this to CDEvents.
Yeah, but I think only if we see a use case where some action is expected to be taken on such an event. I mean, unless we can imagine a consumer interested in listening to it, I don't think we need to specify sending it. I mean, we cannot send events for all actions that happens in all systems, even though they are similar for different types of systems. But yeah,
there is a use case where I could have an email microservice that's running, and then, you know, anyone that adds, like whether it's from Bitbucket or GitHub or whatnot, adds a new reviewer, like it would send all these CDEvents, and then I could have this one service do all the emailing, right? So that might be useful. You know, it just really depends, like how people want to use the CDEvents, but that could be a potential use case.
yeah.
But perhaps a different way of looking at this is to consider it from the perspective of this being an example of a generic long-running process. So, you know, if something has moved into a review state, everything's going to hang until some external activity is completed. Now, it depends whether or not you want the system to be aware of that and to understand potential sources of, you know, things not happening. In which case, telling the system that responsibility has moved outside its domain to you know, an external factor would be useful, in that you can get better observability information from that, and can also potentially then build additional notification capabilities to chase people after a timeout period.
Yeah,
There could be like DORA metrics accordingly, I guess, where you can see like how many reviews were requested for like a PR and how many changes. Like you could see like a review requested and like review requested and the change edited or like change updated ratio to see how many reviews did a PR actually took.
yeah, that actually makes sense to also collect the metric on how long is a review out there before people normally answer on it and accept it or decline it or whatever, reject it. So we can calculate such metrics based on the events, and that would actually make sense to have a common way of describing that through events. Then that now this change has got a review requested from someone, and now it was approved or now it was rejected. So we can calculate the duration of such review activities.
Also, from a chain of custody and audit perspective, you might want to be aware internally of, you know, who specifically has been tasked to review, and you may want to manage situations where you want to enforce specific reviewers at a platform level, which you can't control necessarily on external systems. So you might need to actually intercept this and say, okay, a review has been requested, but actually we've requested it from the wrong person. So then the platform would want to take action to redirect those reviews.
Yeah, I guess when we enter this space, we kind of enter a new can of worms where we would need to have events also for review requests withdrawn and all other kinds of edge cases, I guess, on these kinds of things. So it's hard to maybe map that to all SCM systems as well and make it work well in all.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, how far do you want to take it? Because GitHub even has, like, you know, the PR, but it's not ready to review yet. So it's like, how many things do you want to track? Right?
The draft PRs. I mean, the draft PRs might be even more interesting actually, because then you might not want to run your CI or your pre-merge pipeline on a draft PR, but you would like to run it on a non-draft PR, for example. So that actually makes sense to have able to distinguish that in the event, if it's a draft or not. Or what's it called? Preliminary? No, it's called draft, right? In GitHub.
Yeah, it's draft.
I think so, yeah.
it's so for this specific event, maybe it makes sense to do kind of a like check GitLab, GitHub, and maybe other Git technologies or Git providers to see if this makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go. And also before settling on terms for these things, we ideally should go through SIG interoperability. I'm not sure if it will end up in SIG best practice now, maybe Terry, if you know that better, about the nomenclature to use there, the terms to use for different actions in the CI/CD systems. We have the vocabulary document there today.
So I think,
yeah,
I think there's probably two different levels at which you can look at this. You know, you can look at it at the engineering level of a pipeline as just a mechanism for delivering software. In which case, you might say that this type of feature sits outside of that. But from a best practices perspective, we're thinking much more about the overall product governance perspective that people want from their pipelines. And in that case, you need to think much more about what are the security aspects of this, what are the software supply chain aspects of this. And in that case, the review mechanism is actually another potential threat vector. So, you know, if you've got people initiating reviews on code and potentially signing off on things, you really want a mechanism in your end-to-end process that allows you to verify that those were the right people, and that or to detect that somebody hasn't managed to subvert that part of your process outside of your CI/CD system. So there's an audit part to this and a security part to it, which is almost independent from the software delivery part.
Right, and that could maybe be notified by, I mean, the input data there could come from CDEvents if that's suitable for some of those, maybe.
Yeah,
I guess. But talking again about the vocabulary, maybe the best practices ideas or the work there is more now related to the security parts and the processes or ways of working around the CI/CD pipelines, not exactly the vocabulary, the terms used themselves, I guess.
Yeah, so I think there's, if you like, the best practices piece is trying to paint the picture of what's the overarching need, what are the user stories for continuous delivery, and then as you work your way through the different levels, we're starting to say, well, you know, are we including these capabilities at this level of definition? So yeah, you could certainly make the argument that it would be important to include these factors within our terminology and within the events level, because then it gives us a standard way of doing that, and therefore tooling is likely to adopt that, and that will encourage the implementation of best practice at a tooling level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, I think that you should go ahead and not go away. You should go ahead and look into the other.
Okay, I'll go away if you want.
Sorry.
It's
to look in GitLab and Garrett maybe as well. I don't know. We use Garrett in Ericsson, but I'm not sure how much it's used outside in others. But maybe Bitbucket is also an option to look into there to see how
Volvo Cars uses Garrett extensively.
Okay.
Vibhav, if it's okay, could you share the Google Doc just on the screen for a few more seconds? I had to do some understanding on the site. So we had a question before, like what is the event that actually signals that the code has changed? And apparently that is which you have already identified. It's the synchronize. So synchronize, it will be sent whenever the code is changed, like you have done a rebase or added a new commit or something. I find that naming to be very confusing, but now I know. So edited would be for like when you change the title or some other things like that. Synchronize is what it gets triggered when the code is changed. Second comment I had, closed, apparently, when the closed event is fired, it can be with either merged or not merged. And if it's closed with merged, then that would be, we have an event for that, which I currently don't remember what it's called, but I think it's called change merged.
Change merged, yeah. Change merged.
Yeah. Yeah, so that closed event will be triggered both when the change is abandoned and when the change is merged. So yeah, but this looks really good. I'm happy that someone is looking into this, and I can see a lot of use for it.
Yeah,
nice.
And I think we can do similar actions for the other SEM providers than Git providers. Yeah. So that would be great to see, actually. Yeah.
Okay, this is good.
Yeah, very good. So do we have some? I know that we internally in Ericsson we have actually events, or not actually events, but we have states where we look when a change, a pull request in this case, has been approved. So it's reviewed enough, so to say. So there has been enough amount of reviews, and in some scenarios we would then like to run a separate pipeline on some code that we know has at least passed the manual human review, and we don't want to run that before the review has been approved.
We have the same in Volvo Cars.
Okay, is there some GitHub event or action for such a scenario, or is it just review added? No, what was it called now when it was changed then? So
I guess we can send a review created, sorry, change reviewed event on pull request review submitted.
But then the review is submitted, but this doesn't say that the pull request itself is possible to merge. It's mergeable or reviewed enough, so to say. I'm not sure if there is some attribute for that as well here. No, maybe not.
But I think here it is submitted. So submitted here would be that someone has made a review, which was either approved or not approved. So it's not actually submitting the merge or a pull request. It's submitting the review for the pull request.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
so we could pick those up. But maybe Emil, you're asking for, is there an event where GitHub says that now this has been reviewed enough? Is that what you're getting at?
Is there such notification coming in any GitHub action saying that this pull request is now reviewed enough? Or
that's a good question. I don't know.
No.
Neither do I. But that seems like a like you're saying, if GitHub sends an event, if a pull request has been reviewed enough, right?
Yeah.
What do you mean by enough?
It means more or less that the submit button is. It doesn't actually need to be the submit button is available yet, because it could still be some automatic pipeline still ongoing. But I know that in GitLab there is a concept of approved. So a merge request in GitLab could be approved or not yet approved. And approving there, as far as I remember now at least, means that manual reviewers has approved the merge request, even though there might still be some automatic pipeline ongoing for it. So there in GitLab, I'm pretty sure there is such a concept. And if you look into different SEM providers, you can see that for GitLab, I assume that there might be some kind of, what's it called? Not GitLab action, but whatever, the webhook for notifying GitLab updates.
seems like there's a field in rule.
Required approving, yeah.
Yeah, so it's in the branch protection rule event. I don't know at what point we'll be getting this event. Like I don't know the life cycle, like a point in the life cycle where we see this event, but seems like there is this event called required approving review count. This might be the point where after enough people have approved, you can see in the GitHub UI where like enough people have approved this pull request. This must be part of that.
Yeah. So of course we don't need to have that in the first version of this, but just say more or less that there will possibly come extensions to this need anyway, to add more, maybe more predicates to our events, or add even more event types later on. Let's see. But that shouldn't delay you as well, of course.
Just a slightly more generic question here. Obviously, this is an example of an external distributed service. Are we intending to manage any events relating to availability of distributed services? So if we're trying to connect to something and it's either throttling or it's unavailable, are we going to generate events to communicate to the rest of the orchestration system that there's an issue at that level?
I think that would be more tracing, right, than CDEvents.
Exactly, yeah. That's what I'm thinking as well. I mean, we will not be, I mean, I don't think that CDEvents will be duplicating what already exists in the open telemetry world, or the tracing world of systems, so to say. I mean, making sure that all CI/CD system tools or subsystems are up and running. But instead, we should have references between these different notifications in some way, either from CDEvents to the whatever open tracing items, or vice versa, or maybe both ways. So we can track. We know that this pull request was sent from this GitHub, maybe internally deployed instance, whatever, and then we can ask the tracing functionality, what is the status of that server? That's more how I would see it.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking back to a fairly common issue with Jenkins X that occurred specifically with GitHub, was that we would quite frequently hit rate limits on the GitHub end, which would cause you to have a backlog of activity in your CI/CD system, which would then keep trying to poll the end system, which would just reject you even more because you were creating more load on it, that it was exceeding your rate limits. So there is a need for the CI/CD system to be aware of some of those things and change its behavior in response to your dynamic external effects.
Sure, and of course that's true, I guess, for any kind of performance related issues. I mean, it could be CPU load or external storage load or whatever in your system as well, that you need to be aware of inside your system somehow. But still, I don't really see, because of course those wouldn't get a GitHub action when or get notified by GitHub actions when GitHub has decreased performance or whatever. So I guess we need to monitor those systems in some other way. And again, I don't think that CDEvents is the best fit for that.
What we do have, I'm not sure how related it is, but we do have the incident events that we've discussed. So if we consider that an incident, that okay, we have a service that we would like to talk to, but that service is not talking to us. We could choose to send an incident event, which other parts of our CI/CD system could pick up and say, okay, then we need to back off from that service for a while because it's rate limiting us. I'm not saying we should do that, but it would seem to me to be one use case for the incident events.
To me, the incident events are more like Jira tickets or the like some kind of trouble reports or bugs, incidents that faults that has happened in some system. You could maybe consider this a fault as long as you have an eye to connect it, but
yeah. And for me, like if I am adjusting an event, that system would then make the call to this system that's down, and then that would do the rate limiting and the throttling, right? Like we don't need that to be propagated throughout CDEvents, you know. And I think, you know, with tracing, you know, you can visualize that there's already a good measurement for that. So I really don't think CDEvents is the right place for it, at least from what I can see.
I think it depends on whether you're looking at a simple or a complex implementation. So in the general case, I would agree it's overkill, but I've certainly looked at system implementations where you're trying to build a very resilient platform agnostic CI/CD system where you actually are trying to build something that spans across multiple cloud vendors, and potentially would even want to try and have a fallback repository to stop the fact that if you've got a single point of failure and that goes down, you then can't build and release anything, because that becomes a big weakness. Because if someone can interrupt your service provision from an external vendor, then you can't react to them because you can't deploy any new code. So you would want to know if you couldn't access part of your system so that you could fail over your process onto an alternative path to work around that. But that is at the more extreme end of what people want to be able to do.
Yeah, and again, I think that any such system would anyway need other means of monitoring some parts of its environment. Even though we could, of course, have CDEvents for certain such status reporting notifications, but I don't know if we can have it for everything. Of course, we could, I guess. It's a bit stretched, but I get your point. It's in some way it's a CI/CD related thing because you could make some fallback or revert your workload on some cloud and bring it up on some other cloud automatically within your CI/CD pipeline or whatever. Eventually, yeah.
But I mean, you don't need CDEvents to do that, right? Like you should have other technologies to, you know, like canaries and, you know, and then the correct load balancers in front of those things, or, you know, what have you, you know, to hit the correct pods or services or whatnot. So I think CDEvents, especially since, you know, we're in the early stages of it, I think we should focus on more of the code part of it rather than the infrastructure part of it, keeping the scope lower for now. And then maybe in the future, like if this does become a bigger thing, maybe we can branch out for that. But I think keeping the scope small for now, I think makes the most sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't disagree with that. From a best practices perspective, we would probably take the opposite approach, which is to say, what's actually the overarching set of requirements that is the end goal for this, and therefore what things should be on the roadmap, and then you might then set the implementation order, but you wouldn't exclude things. You would say, right, that goes on the roadmap, but it's in X version rather than this version.
No, but I think
the-
that's valuable. Yeah, so it's great that that work is done in best practices, so we can somehow see that we are at least converging eventually towards common, or we reach some kind of completeness in both monitoring and traceability in every aspect of the system, and parts of it through CDEvents. I'm not sure if all those aspects are to be covered by CDEvents. I think I tend to agree with them there. It might not be the best fit, but it's very good that we.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think some of it comes down to whether we see the future of CDEvents as a kind of abstraction layer, in which case there will be a minimum set of functionality that you need to have a viable abstraction layer.
But let's keep that thought in mind and see. I guess that's anyway a separate subject and not really related to the GitHub Actions discussion we have right now, but it's certainly worth thinking about more. So
just coming back to this, if you guys don't mind,
yeah.
I also wanted to discuss the implementation aspect for this, for the POC. So on Slack, we discussed if JavaScript would be a good idea initially to do it, because reading GitHub events from JavaScript is pretty easy, and GitHub Actions is an easy way to do this by giving a script and running that script, writing the script in JavaScript and reading GitHub event payloads from there, and then doing whatever we need to. So it was considering there's no JavaScript SDK for CDEvents. The way we would get to do this with Golang is, after giving a little thought, might become a kind of a CLI for like a CDEvents generator CLI, where we'll be able to like provide a sink and pass the payload requirements and like whatever's required, whatever we need to give in the extra fields, the custom fields. So it seems like it might become a CLI, which we would then be running in GitHub Actions.
Yeah, there are discussions on providing a CLI to interact with CDEvents, whether that CLI should be based on top of the Go SDK, or maybe the Python SDK, which is almost there as well, or the Java SDK, which is ongoing, or something else. I don't know. Remains to be decided, I guess. But I agree that it would be beneficial to have a CLI to emit events, do you think?
Yeah, that CLI would be like, initially it would be specifically for like, if Go is the way we are going for this POC, then CLI would be the best way to, like, if we have to do it in Go, then making a CLI makes sense for generating these events. Where we give this.
Yeah, there's no one forcing you to use Go here. I think it's just that Go is the currently only supported, or at least available finished SDK.
Yeah.
But of course, if you like to implement the JavaScript SDK or something else, that's of course fine as well.
Okay.
I guess just maybe one limitation is that we cannot afford to have as many or an infinite number of SDKs, obviously, because we need to maintain all the SDKs that we say we support.
Exactly. Yeah.
But apart from that, it's no problem at all, I guess.
Okay, considering that, and considering like the testing aspect of this, maybe Go makes a lot more sense, because then if I create a CDEvents generator using Go, so it's something I found a cloud events generator. A second. I don't know which one it was. Was it this one? Yeah, this one. Yeah, I found this cloud events generator. We could probably you like get some inspiration from initially to create a CDEvents generator. Is what is the path I was thinking of taking.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
That could be.
So if you guys don't like mind it, like I will just go ahead with this then, and basically either like fork this and create a CDEvents generator, make some changes, create a CDEvents generator. Else, if you guys have any other ideas, I'll go ahead with, I can consider that as well.
Yeah,
No,
I think for the technologies, you know, like just choose whatever, considering this is still pretty early on. You know, and if you feel like Go is the best approach, just, you know, I think, you know, just choose it, you know. If you like Python, just go with Python. I think, you know, like what Emil was saying, it's just you don't have to go with Go, right? And I think if you want to use this generator, you know, that's completely fine. Because I think we're kind of getting into the implementation details. And yeah, so I think, you know, whatever gets the job done the easiest and the least amount of work is what I would probably choose.
Yeah. And then we can, of course, refactor later on, and if we find a better implementation, better architecture for some of these surrounding systems that we implement together with CDEvents, that's a secondary question and a later topic, I would say. So do whatever feels easiest for the moment to prove your point and to create the POC.
Okay, I'll do that. One question I had was, is there a cloud events sync which is kind of owned by CDEvents? Like or a better question would be, is there a cluster where I can test this on? Like an endpoint where I can just send CDEvents?
No, not that I'm aware of. Is there? I don't think we have requested any infrastructure for CDEvents itself. Maybe that's actually a good point to bring to the TOC, maybe to see if we can get access to some infrastructure that can be used for our POCs for CDEvents. So I'm at least not aware of such.
Okay.
I could bring it to the TOC next week if we see that's interesting.
Yeah, it might be good for long term, maybe for testing CDEvents.
Yeah, and also for maybe providing a sandbox environment for potential users or whatever to try it out and such things as well.
Yeah.
If there would be some isolated infrastructure that could be used without disturbing anything else. Let's see. Yep, good comment. I think we're almost out of time, aren't we? So I know, Eric, you wanted to say some few words about the Python SDK.
No, other than what I've added in the notes, there is a PR with which compliant events can be created, but it doesn't give a very good user experience yet, and it cannot parse events. So there's still a bit of work left to do, but I will keep working at it.
Yeah. And obviously the 0.2 topic will be delayed to a later meeting.
Yeah.
I think we had a very fruitful discussion today, and I'm very happy to see that. I'll try to add some notes somewhere and maybe some issues so we don't forget about things.
Yeah, nice.
Thank you all for joining and for the great discussions. Talk to you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.